Hello and welcome to round 5 of the Wisconsin Regional Championship. This year we have quite the feature match for you. On your right we have 3-time world champion Jason Klaczynski, the only player to have ever won more than one Worlds, and he won his third this past August in Vancouver.
Quite impressive.
Versus Dane, I believe is how you pronounce his name. And he appears to be playing a plasma deck. That Palkia is actually going to be pretty interesting versus Jason's Blastoise deck here. Have you ever seen Palkia or come into effect or played it much?
Not personally, but he is quite interesting because with couple Deoxys or Muscle Band, its first attack can knock out a Dragon. It's either Rayquaza or Black Kiromi X.
Yeah, it's huge versus the Blastoise decks because they're able to, as you said, Palkia can strafe, knock it out with a 2 Deoxys and a Muscle Band or 4 Deoxys, and then also switch to your bench where you can promote, on Dane's end, probably that Snorlax.
Yeah.
Snorlax has an ability called Block that says your opponent's defending Pokemon cannot retreat. And typically, Palkia is good versus the Blastoise decks, but not unbeatable simply because the Blastoise decks now have access to Pokemon Catcher. There was a time when Blastoise decks didn't. And Jason's just going to go ahead and concede game 1. He must just not have had anything. Wow, that strafe will knock it out with a Deoxys on the bench. And Dane has taken game 1 over 3-time regional champion Jason Klaczynski. Wow,
what a quick match.
Yeah, not much to talk about in that game, but this does save plenty of time to have a full games 2 and 3. And so yeah, and we didn't really get to explain a whole lot, but Palkia is very good versus the Dragon types. One hit knocks them out, and how it's supposed to go, kind of on the side of the Plasma player, is to just strafe a bunch, basically prevent them from ever knocking you out unless they build up a big Keldeo EX, which can then be return KO'd by a Deoxys EX. But as I was in the middle of saying, the Blastoise decks do have access to Pokemon Catcher now. There was a time when most of those decks did not run it. So we'll see. Palkia is a very good card against them. You saw I just won the game for Dane there, but
well, that's a very odd situation.
Yeah, and almost any Pokemon in Dane's deck could have done that on turn 2.
Yes.
So it wouldn't have mattered too much, but yeah, it is a very good card versus them, but can also, especially a player of Jason's caliber who certainly knows how to play around it, can also kind of mitigate its presence there. And we
Another
see
Palkia start.
Yeah, Dane opens with it again. Jason is going to have the advantage of going first this time, and you got to believe that he's going to go ahead and prevent what happened last game and rush in with that Squirtle, or rush in with that Keldeo, get the Squirtle out of the active position. It does take, you might think it takes kind of a lot for Dane to get the strafe up and rolling, but all it takes is a double colorless and a colorless machine attaching a plasma.
Mm-hmm.
So as you saw, he got it off on turn 1. You can't attack on your first turn, of course, but last game he got off on turn 1, and it's not too hard to do on a regular basis.
And I didn't see his hand just now, barring a DCE, but he could very well have a colorless machine in hand or just draw one.
So you did see the DC in his hand?
I did. And he has the Deoxys.
Not going to matter now because Jason is playing that end. Level Ball finds a Squirtle for Jason. And yeah, it's also kind of, as you saw last game, it kind of works out because Palkia with a Muscle Band or a single Deoxys on the bench can one-hit KO a Squirtle too. And I'm not sure what Dane's list looks like. Obviously, we barely got any of it. But if he's running Genesect and Red Signal, he can get one of those Squirtles and go to an odd prize exchange, but it won't really matter because he has Lugia. So Lugia I assume he plays Lugia, I'm not sure if we actually saw that, but
it's actually kind of interesting that he kind of showed Jason his hand, so to speak. He showed all the techs that he does have in his deck, the Snorlax, the Palkia, and the Genesect. And so there really, I would assume, are no surprises left.
Yeah, did he show him any safeguarders?
No.
Okay, because I saw him get a Suicune last game. I saw him with a Suicune rather last game, but I'm not sure if that was because he like Ultra Balled forward, if he just had it in his hand. And we see a Sigilyph this game, so he has a fair amount of safeguarders. Jason does have that Black Kyurem non-EX on the bench there, but we'll have to get a look through Dane's deck here. Did you see Lugia's? I don't know. There's a Colorless Machine. Couldn't quite see what was in his deck there.
This could be a very unconventional plasma list.
It could. I don't think we see a supporter out of Dane. I couldn't quite see, but I didn't see one offhand. So this could be a rough spot for him too. We see, I believe that's a Prism Energy attached. Can't quite tell as well as that Plasma Energy there. So he will not, unless he gets another Colorless Machine, he will not be strafing this turn.
There's a Sigilyph.
Yeah, Dane could be on just the kind of safeguard strafe plan, which involves basically strafing with Palkia EX and then moving to the bench and promoting a Sigilyph or a Suicune, a Pokemon with safeguard that can't be knocked out by, or that can't be damaged by EXs, and kind of send up a wall that way. As we said, unfortunately for Dane, Jason does have the Black Kyurem, the non-EX on his bench, which will mean that that plan isn't going to quite go through as well, and it also will mean that if Dane can't hide this Palkia forever, and is going to need to either start strafing soon or kind of build up resources into something else, because Jason has a pretty easy road to knocking it out with that non-EX Black Kyurem. But Jason missing the turn 2 Blastoise. He does get the beach. A little slower of a start than he would like, but not terrible. And I don't think we saw a supporter out of Dane on the job. We've seen a lot of those games, those kind of games this tournament.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. I mean, it was also unfortunate for Jason to lose the way he did. So both of these games, we still have a lot of game to go in this game, I feel like, but it would be pretty unfortunate to move to a game 3 without really a legitimate game played. And there's a Tropical Beach from Dane. Does not draw him does draw him already just a Colorless, okay.
And so he also drew a Shadow Triad, but I'm not so sure that will help him right now.
Shadow Triad is a supporter technically, but it's not really a draw card.
No.
Which is really what Dane was looking for there. But it hit the Colorless. Colorless right now gets him 6 cards, which will be
a good old pawn.
Good old Professor Oak's new theory. Be a good restarting there. There's a Lightning Energy on the Black Kyurem from Jason, and he slams down an N. So still missing the Blastoise theoretically. N doesn't give you the best chances in the world of hitting a Blastoise, and this could be an unfortunate match for Jason. But we'll see. I see an Ultra Ball. Do I see the rare candy? We see the new Pokemon catchers from the X and Y like starter decks or something, I believe those are. Don't think those are actually from the set. I think I do see a rare candy actually in that hand, and combined with that Ultra Ball, should be able to get Jason the Blastoise this turn. He unfortunately does not really have a way to do much this turn. You saw him just check his discard Powerful Energy, but he will be able to get his hand down to 2 cards, and then Tropical Beach all the way back up to 7. So he's just beaching, I guess.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry, I must have misread that. That's much worse for Jason. Still not hitting the Blastoise. And there's a Deoxys on the bench off of a Team Plasma Ball for Dane. Plasma Energy onto the Deoxys, and a Colorless now getting him 7 cards. So basically a Juniper without having to discard the resources, or getting to discard them depending on how you look at things.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, so Dane won game 1 very, very quickly and has stumbled a bit in game 2, but so as has Jason, so it's really anyone's game at this point, I feel like. And there's 7 cards for Dane. Drawing another Palkia. So yeah, it looks like Dane's deck is just like the mono Palkia Safeguarder plan. Which is really interesting. He's currently sitting at 3-0-1 with a deck that I haven't really seen much of before.
I mean, I'd normally think of Palkia as more of a tech, a single one of.
Right. A lot of the plasma decks lately have just been running one of them to kind of deal with Blastoise, but that's a failed Team Plasma Ball. We did see a Spiritomb in Dane's deck, which is really interesting. Spiritomb's ability disallows either player from playing their A-Spec card, which when it first came out, I think people kind of thought it was pretty bad and thought you wouldn't want to cut yourself off of an A-Spec just for Spiritomb, but since G-Booster on Genesect and the Genesect Virizion decks has been around longer, it seems like Spiritomb's definitely been more useful than people once thought. And there's a Pokemon catcher and a Tails. And so Palkia strafed for 90 that turn?
Yes.
And we see an Ultra Ball. We do see the Ultra Ball and the Rare Candy, so Jason will have the Blastoise this turn. We also saw him dump 2 Water Energy, so that's going to be pretty good for him to have all those energy in his discard pile. And there's the Russian. I assume he's going to go ahead and retreat. Yeah, so he's retreating, sending up that Black Kyurem, superior energy retrievaling, and then being able to knock out the Safeguarder. The unfortunate part is that Jason is going to lose this Black Kyurem to a Palkia, but it's kind of the best place you can be in if you're Jason. I believe it, besides Blastoise, your only out to Safeguarders is probably that Black Kyurem. And so building it up, knocking out the Safeguard, and trading 1-for-1 prizes there is fine, especially as it just puts more energy in your discard pile, which is where Blastoise wants him to be at all times. So Jason's totally happy with this result. Again, we have a lot of game to play, but Jason, definitely this turn was huge for Jason, monumental in getting at that Blastoise and kind of taking this prize, dealing with the Safeguarder while he can. We've seen Execute from Jason too, so a little bit, and we see a Heavy Ball as well, so we've seen Level Ball, Heavy Ball, and Execute from Jason. This looks like he's playing more of a teched out Blastoise list. What do you think of that? What do you think of the Execute in particular, David?
I'm a huge fan of Execute. I think I said this in a previous match, but had I been forced to play what I had, I would have played an Empoleon list utilizing Execute. So I'm a big fan. In Blastoise, I've seen it perform very well without Execute, but with Execute, it just saves so many resources. I guess it comes down to player preference. I mean, as do any of these card choices, but it's definitely a solid choice.
Definitely. And there's the knockout. Dane immediately promotes that Palkia EX. Definitely going to take advantage of the free knockout he has here. And if he has another Safeguarder, Jason could be in trouble, although I do think that Blastoise plays relatively well with Safeguarders. If you can load up a big Blastoise, there's often not a lot they can do, especially as Jason now has 2 Blastoise on the field, meaning that even if Dane can react and knock out 1, Jason still has 1 to A, deal with Safeguarders, and B, just also have the Deluge Power active ability, rather. Although you gotta believe that Jason would much rather knock out the last Safeguarder in Dane's deck, hopefully, and not have to deal with another one, because if Dane can get 2 knockouts on Blastoise, that will be pretty hard for Jason to overcome. Especially considering that, one of the things back in the day with Blastoise that you used to be able to do, I've talked about this a lot, is whether it was not having a Blastoise, getting your Blastoise knocked out, or your opponent having a Garbodor active, is you were able to just build up a big Keldeo and attack with it, and kind of maybe not win the game, but oftentimes just win, and at least allow yourself, 2-3 turns to get back in the game. But with Deoxys EX on Dane's side, it definitely could prove pretty harsh for, it's pretty harsh for Jason there, but we see some confusion over whether or not he was going to knock it out. I think Jason might have forgotten Palkia was a Dragon type. That Spiritomb's obviously getting promoted because it's a non-EX Pokemon for Jason to have to take a prize off of and go down to 3 prizes, an uneven number. But it's not too bad for Jason at this point. He's already got his Blastoise set up. You see the draw for the turn is his A-Spec that he cannot play now, but
What a coincidence.
Yeah, but he's already kind of got what he needs. Obviously, you'll play the ace pick if you could, and he kind of wishes he could now. But he has his board built up to where it won't be that big of a problem. Although it looks like he might actually miss. I can't quite see what's in his hand, but he might actually miss the. He also plays Jirachi. So Jason just playing all different kinds of technology here. What do you think of Jirachi as a card?
I love the card, but I was actually arguing with a friend about whether it should be in a deck at this tournament in particular, and I think not. There are too many red signals, too many Pokemon catchers, too many things that could not go well with a Jirachi out on the field.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's a crutch card for consistency, but it's almost too much reliability in this climate.
That's fair, that's fair. We see Jason dealing with that Spiritomb via a Russian Secret Sword with Keldeo. And there's a Snorlax, and Dane just keeps the... non-EX prizes happening here, and then calls for a big 9 cards. And Jason now at 4 prizes as well, which means that when you knock out the Snorlax, excuse me, I had the count wrong last turn, but when you knock out the Snorlax, if he can, he'll go down to 3 prizes and be in a tough position. What were you going to say, David?
Oh, Dane is just having an excellent time controlling the prizes he gives up. That's impressive to see.
Definitely. I think when you're playing a deck like this that relies on heavy Palkia, you know, I always kind of say that there are 2 types of decks. There are more than 2, but the 2 types of decks that I think about a lot are decks that are very inherently powerful, like Black Kyurem EX, so like the Blastoise deck. You know, what it does is very, very powerful. Black Kyurem does 200 damage, Blastoise lets you break the rules and have as many managers you want. But then there's decks also that have good synergy, like this deck with this Dane's deck. You know, it's all of his cards, you know, straight for 50. Who really cares? Not that big of a deal. But, you know, when you consider the non-EX prize, when you consider the presence of Deoxys EX, you just have a lot of stuff that kind of works well together to mold you into this good deck. And I particularly, I personally am a fan of the kind of inherently good decks rather than the ones that are kind of synergistic. Combos. Yeah, but they both work. You know, you see Dane's definitely holding his own here.
Yes, very much so.
And there's a tool scrapper from Jason. Just going to go ahead and take care of that. Muscle band. Looks like Jason's going for and superior energy retrieval. And I think Jason's honestly happy here to just take the KO with the Keldeo EX and just load up the Deoxys and load up the Black Kyurem. And he's still going to the 3 prizes. He's kind of behind, but he's just way ahead on board here. Especially as Dane is also at odd prizes himself. So if he manages to get a knockout in some form, he'll also go down to 3 prizes and kind of be on the back foot. So Jason definitely in control of this game, I feel like. And there, I think there was a Colorless Machine failed by Dane. And there's an N. So this N card is a kind of natural predator of the Blastoise deck.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of players play Electrode in their decks. Electrode's a stage 1 that has an ability to let you draw up to 4 cards. Draw until you have 4 cards in your hand, as kind of a way to prevent tricks with N, as a way to prevent drawing dead. But it seems like Jason has just drawn the Dowsing Machine, so he can Dowsing Machine for a supporter or a superior energy retrieval, worst case scenario, and he should be just fine.
And he has to execute himself, so he won't be sacrificing too many resources to do whatever he needs to.
He can Dowsing for superior, only discarding 2 cards, because he can activate execute each time. The fear of execute, obviously, the downside of it is, opening the thing, getting him knocked out early, especially because you can actually, it's one of the few cards that you can lose to it's just one of the few cards you can lose with on turn 1, as your opponent can play a Hypnotoxic Laser and a Verbank City Gym to knock it out. But yeah, there's the superior for Jason. Gonna go ahead and propagate, and if he has a... Well, is that a Juniper in his hand? No, I don't think he would do this if he had a Juniper, of course. Look, he's debating over that last card. Discards the N. And there's 4 water, and he's going to go ahead and build that Keldeo, but Jason could lose here, you know, if he can't respond. There's the high five of Juniper, the high five off the no card Juniper. And Jason actually could be in trouble here if the Juniper definitely helps because it's in his hand, but he's going to need another Black Kyurem EX or a lot of energy on a Keldeo to respond to a Palkia. But I think he might, if he has a superior energy retrieval in his hand, which he does, he should be able to have the game unless something strange happens. Because he can load up, after he takes his knockout this turn, he can load up that Keldeo with a bunch of energy off the superior. So we're going to have to see what happens. Jason, considering what he wants to do, he might just be... Oh, there's a Tool Scrapper. Is that Jason's second Tool Scrapper as well? See, Jason playing 2 Tool Scrapper among a lot of other interesting choices in this deck. Jason, of course, is qualified for the World Championship from being last year's World Champion. And I think he has played a fair bit this season. I know he made top 8 at one States. I forget which one it was. I know he's had some other fine results this year. And yeah, I think the tension for Jason here is whether he wants to play Pokemon Catcher and knock out the Palkia for 1, or yeah, so he just decides to go ahead, Black Ballista, go down to 1 prize. And Dane with a knockout and an N here could be huge. And there's actually with that Suicune too, that could be very, very big. And there's the N. So Dane has a knockout, 5, 6, 7. Oh no, he does not have the knockout because he. Oh no, he has the muscle band. He does. He just attached it. Wow. So yeah, he has a knockout here. He'll be going down to 1 prize and going to be putting Jason in a pretty rough spot here. Jason has used his Dazzling Machine already to get the superior. He's also only drawing 1 card, and the bad part about that is that even if he's drawing 2 cards, if he draws, if he draw 2 cards off the end, he can hit superior and something else, and then his draw step will get him what he needs to actually play the superior.
Now, this is the moment in time where most proponents of Electrode are like, you need to play Electrode.
Definitely.
Just in case you get N to 1, and you can't draw out of it.
Oh no! Actually, Jason has the execute, so he will be able to propagate and superior this turn.
Did he draw it though?
I believe he does have a superior in his hand, but that unfortunately he'll need a Pokemon catcher. Actually, oh yeah, so yeah, sorry, he's going to go ahead and Blastoise there, superior, and Hydro Pump for the knockout. So very good game. Yeah, very, very good game. Very back and forth. You know, it came down to basically that last turn. I think if Jason draws any card besides superior energy retrieval there, it's going to be pretty tough for him to come back.
Was this our first match that we watched where it's gone down to 1-1 for games?
I do believe it is, actually, yes. We've had a lot of 2-0s, or a lot of 2-0s so far. Saw Dustin Zimmerman get 2-0'd by Sean Foisey in his his Plasma roller skates deck. Yeah, moving into a game 3. I don't know. I gotta imagine that It's really hard to say who's advantaged because obviously going first has a huge impact, but with the Blastoise deck, it's so inherently powerful, you just never know what's going to happen. Dane is definitely advantaged, and I think having to go first, Jason stumbles at all, you can kind of get ahead of him. He may even knock him out on the first turn like he did like he did in Game 1, but Jason still definitely is in the game. And all it takes to turn 2 Blastoise, even as we saw in that match, turn 4 Blastoise, I believe, can come back. And I assume Sean will be going first. Starting Palkia once again. I mean, I guess it's not all that strange considering he's probably running 4. But definitely getting what he needs. Playing a Team Plasma Ball. I gotta imagine this is fetching out either Deoxys or another Palkia. Could also be fetching out a Snorlax to send up when Palkia strafes, but I think you gotta kind of play it a little bit safer here and get the Deoxys EX, kind of get the card that swings everything for you. And there's an M. Both players will shuffle their hand into their decks and draw 6 cards. Very, very interesting match this far. I'm actually interested to see what happens with Dane as he goes on to this tournament. He has this is the 5th round, so there's 3 more rounds after this, and if he can X1 or XO out of this, he can make top 8, and it may present some problems for his opponents in the top 8. I know that the Plasma decks, especially the Chase Maloney, Trevor Reed version that has been dominating in the Pacific Northwest, has no outs to a Safeguarder. They have no... Sorry, they have no outs to a Silvermare. They do have Naughty X Pokemon. They have Absols, and they have Snorlax. I apologize for that, but still, a lot of decks, they only have those 2 Pokemon. A lot of decks have, a lot of decks right now are heavily focused on EXs, and he could provide some interesting tensions as this tournament goes on. The DCE goes on Palkia. Shifts back to Jason's turn. He plays a Skyla, currently considering what to look for. I gotta believe it's a way to find a Squirtle. Can't quite tell what's in his hand specifically, but you definitely need to stick a Squirtle here if you're Jason, so I'm thinking Level Ball, maybe an Ultra Ball. Just some way to kind of get that Squirtle train rolling. What do you think of the decision of computer search versus dowsing machine in Blastoise or in decks that have to set up like this?
Oh, that's a good question. I tend to lean towards dowsing machine. I think, in general, in most decks, it's just better to have that option in the mid to late game. Computer search is great, but I think you can increase other counts in order to compensate during setup.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of dowsing machine. I've played it in most of these type of decks since it came out. I think that the really cool thing about dowsing machine is it kind of provides copies number 3, 4, and 5 of some of your cards here. Like, for instance, I know that a lot of Blastoise players are playing 1 Tool Scrapper. Jason is playing 2 himself, but a lot of players are playing 1 with the thought that, their dowsing machine is their second copy of Tool Scrapper, or their dowsing machine is their third Pokemon catcher. And it just allows you to kind of have some consistency, but also some balance around what you're going to be doing.
Also, it makes your decks more flexible, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. Gives you more options. And there's a Strafe for 90.
Sure
and
enough.
Bouncing back to that Deoxys EX. We also see Jason playing 2 Professors later. I'd be actually really interested in Jason's full deck list because it seems quite unorthodox. No one card is super out of the ordinary, but Execute and Level Ball and Heavy Ball and 2 Professors letter and 2 Tool Scrapper just are definitely out of the ordinary. Very interesting. See how these next couple of turns play out. After seeing a few matches, what do you think will be what do you think the top 8 will look like in this tournament, David?
Oh, and top 8. I'm not too sure. Probably just more of the same, I would guess. More of the same as any of the other states that have happened, any of the other regionals. Just this format seems well defined by the top 4. And I think we'll see a decent representation of that in top 8.
What are the top 4, in your opinion? These are the top 4 best decks in the format, or at least most played, winningest decks, you could say.
I would say that they're almost one and the same at the moment. But Plasma, Yveltal, Darkrai, with or without Garbodor, I tend to kind of think of them very similarly.
Right.
Blastoise, and I'm blanking on the 4th one.
Fairies?
If that's the 4th one.
Verzine, Genesect.
Oh yeah, Verzine, Genesect, that's it. I don't consider Fairies to be that top. I know it's a highly played deck.
Yeah, there's definitely a few decks you can play right now. I personally don't like the Fairies deck too much, but it is highly being played. Rayquaza Emboar is also a deck that I think is kind of very good, but is not seeing a whole lot of play. Verzine, Genesect has been seeing a lot of play recently, actually. It has a bad matchup against Lugia EX and decks that run heavy copies of that, but that can often be mitigated, as we saw Dustin Zimmerman top 8 or top 4 states with Drifblins in his deck, and we saw Michael Chin get second at the Northwest Regionals with Enhanced Hammers in his deck to kind of mitigate that Lugia problem. But yeah, I would expect, going through the top tables here, I haven't really seen anything that is super interesting, so I would expect kind of more of a probably a healthy mix of Plasma. There seems to be a lot of Plasma in this area more than anything, so probably a healthy mix of Plasma, Blastoise, and Verzine, as you said.
Frankly, this is probably the most interesting deck. That is Dane's Palkia-centered Plasma deck.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. We see a retreat there from Dane, taking the knockout, strafing into that Snorlax. And once again, Jason will have a non-EX way to deal with Dane's own non-EX, but that was an EX knockout for Dane, putting down the 4 prizes. So we'll have to see where things go. Jason does have the Blastoise up, that's very important. He does have the Superior in his hand as well as an Ultra Ball, so he should have kind of everything he needs here to kind of, mount a comeback. But knocking out a non-EX is definitely not where he wants to be, so we'll probably see a similar situation play out that we saw in Game 2, which is Jason knocks out the Snorlax with that non-EX Black Hero.
Will he be able to knock it out?
I don't think he can one-hit it, but he can... Actually, that's actually interesting, because if he doesn't one-hit it and Dane has a way to switch to Palkia, and the Palkia will take the knockout, so... Interesting, but either way, it's probably safe to say that Dane will be taking a non-EX knockout this turn. But no, Jason just seems like he's going to go for it. Build up a big Keldeo.
Wow.
He is in the risk now with 4 energy if he decides to attack of a Deoxys with Muscle Band, getting a knockout on the Keldeo. Dane will need a Muscle Band, a Prism Energy, and a Colress Machine to put the second energy on Deoxys. So it does kind of need a lot, especially being N down to 4 here. But it's definitely a risk Jason is running. He can also actually just attack with the Black Kyurem here, and he also draws a Pokemon catcher, so if he can find a way to knock out Pokemon catch up that Palkia and knock it out with the Black Kyurem, that could be a huge game and set Dane way far behind.
He would put himself in a very good position.
I'm not sure if Jason has another energy, though. That's going to be the key. And we see Jason considering playing that Tool Scrapper, I think, because I think he might as well. I think in all the decks that don't play Garbodor, you might as well just play the Tool Scrapper to kind of, for value, whenever you can. Obviously, if you have a totally not relevant card, you shouldn't, but whenever you can get a Muscle Band's pretty relevant. Whenever you can scrap up a Muscle Band, especially if you can get a 2-for-1. If you can do 2 tools for 1 Tool Scrapper, then you're in a huge position. And there's the Max Potion. Haven't seen that too much.
No, it kind of dropped off a little in use.
Yeah, I think just because so many decks are getting one-hit KOs, you know, between the Blastoise decks, the Rayquaza Emboar decks, the Lugia decks, just so many decks are focused around one-hit KOs now that Max Potion is just not as relevant as it once was. We see a Safeguarder in the form of Sigilyph on Zane's side, but Jason does have that non-EX Black Kyurem on the bench.
Losing that muscle band was actually kind of big because he won't be able to two-shot the Keldeo.
Yeah, not currently. He will need 2 more Deoxys, or they actually need Deoxys and the muscle band. There's only out. We see another Deoxys EX in his hand. But that's not going to solve his problems, though. Just deciding to commit to the second Palkia. But I think it's correct there. If you're not going to two-shot anyway, I think you need to try and build up your board a little bit, because if this Palkia gets knocked out, you know, Dane can be in some real trouble. And there's a Colorless Machine from Dane. Jason taking some time to look through Dane's discard pile. And he looks like Dane will get the knockout on this Black Kyurem.
That was nice.
Yeah, that was pretty nice play there. He is going to force Jason to knock out, or at least it's going to force Jason to deal with this Sigilyph somehow. The problem is if Jason tries to deal with the Sigilyph via a Blastoise, he's going to have a pretty hard time because that's his only Blastoise. If that gets knocked out by any means, he's going to be very, very far behind.
Can I say that you have the
Sure.
All right. How's it going, everyone? This is Mike stepping in for Kenny. Your boy had to pee pretty bad. Didn't think he was going to make it to the end of the round, and was not a risk we were willing to take. So
all this rain dance must have been.
It's all that water energy, dude. So, David, catch me up. What have I missed? Dane appears to be playing the infamous Wilgen.
Wilgen, is that what it's called?
Yeah, dude. This is William Compere's deck. Britt played it as a joke and then did well with it, and now it's like an archetype.
Funny how that kind of works out.
Yeah, right? So, it's Jason's turn. Did he just flip for a catcher? I literally am just seeing everything for the first time. I don't really know what's going on.
Your match. How'd it go?
It was fine. Blastoise against Genesect. Game 1 was sort of close, but I pulled it out, and then Game 2 he ran really poorly, and it was relatively easy from there.
It's unfortunate to have those games.
For sure.
It's great to win the match, but you want to have a good game doing so.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not very satisfying to win a game like that, but I'm still alive, I guess.
So we're seeing a
really nice kid. He took it really well. That we are. Couldn't tell if that was lag or hesitation or both. But he commits to the Skyla. Looks like he's going to get a retrieval. And yeah, dude, I don't see how he's going to deal with this Sigilyph effectively. How far into the game are we? Do you know if Dane has the resources to attack with the Deoxys? Like if he should be able to feasibly Colorless Machine and get a Colorless Machine and a Prism this turn, or?
I haven't gotten a good chance to look at his hand. So there's obviously that chance.
Really interesting to see an Execute. I have not seen much of that in Blastoise at all recently.
Yeah, Kenny and I were talking about that earlier. What's your opinion on it?
I don't know. It's awesome, like, to have in your discard. Like, obviously, I just don't think it's awesome to have in your deck when you sit down. Like, I'm not sure if the pros outweigh the cons. I think Blastoise is a really tighter list than people realize, and people are leaving out better cards in favor of stuff like Execute and Jirachi and things like that. But I do think that it is incredible to have. Like, it's an awesome resource to have in a game, so maybe it's paying off for Jason.
Jason's actually running a pretty interesting list. I think saw a level ball, heavy ball, Execute, I believe even a Jirachi. So some interesting
So
card
this is
choices.
like Nationals Blastoise. Is that a secret rare Blastoise in his hand? Is he playing different arts? Oh, shaking my head.
So it looks like he's going to try to take out the Sigilyph with Hydro Pump. But he's got to prepare for that inevitable knockout.
Loading up that Keldeo so he can survive without a Blastoise. If it comes
Also,
down to
just
it.
bring out another Squirtle.
Yeah, exactly. So there's nothing on Dane's field that he can that can survive 170 from Keldeo. Jason does not have a supporter, I don't think. Doesn't look like it. Oh, he's got an N, so I mean that's better than nothing, I suppose. So yeah, it looks like Dane was ready to respond with the Deoxys, but obviously Jason anticipated that by loading up that Keldeo and benching the Squirtle. So Jason will only need to attach one energy from his hand with or without Deluge to return the knockout on that Deoxys. And yes! Oh my god! I'm so happy. Nobody does that. Great sportsmanship from both players. We see the Juniper high five.
Jason was able to do that last game.
Was he? Oh,
yeah,
dude,
yeah.
Awesome. I'm so glad. I have not seen enough people doing that. I'm happy to see it catching on a little bit. I don't know why he's grabbing damage counters. Okay, yeah, has he done that for every knockout? Like, put all the damage counters on it and then...
He has actually done that quite a few times.
That's so silly. So, Jason doesn't have the water in hand. He's ending himself to 4. His deck doesn't look terribly thin. Execute helps out so much when you have to end yourself low. Oh, he's got a Superior in hand. Yeah, he's golden. So he definitely is going to be able to get a water this turn. He was hit with a bit of a judgment call there just because he's not going to be able to deluge any of these energy. So he's getting 4 out only to attach 1 water and then have to end them all into his deck. But obviously he's way too far behind if he misses energy, so he decided not to gamble, which was definitely the correct play in my opinion. But technically he could have just end to save himself a superior retrieval and hope to draw the water energy, but I just think that's objectively inferior to what he went for, so...
He's an excellent player.
That was not very much shuffling. I mean, I guess it's fine. Let's see, so we got Black Kyurem, Water, or Black Kyurem, Lightning, and I didn't see the 4th card, but obviously, no matter what the 4th card is, that won't lead to a Blastoise this turn. So if Dane is able to gust up that Squirtle, well, no, because Dane needs to respond to this Keldeo. So having that one Squirtle looks kind of scary from Jason's end, especially with that red signal threat, but honestly,
the focus is where it should be.
He's got a 6 energy Keldeo, so he can really afford to lose that Squirtle right now, which is, part of the reason Catstoise was so good back in its day, but that's a conversation for another day, I suppose. I took my last prizes today with a 6 energy Keldeo. Proud of me. So, Dane, if he has another Helix Force here, then he is golden. If not, things are looking pretty good for Jason. I think we might just see a strafe into a Snorlax, assuming Dane's not just slow rolling a supporter. Yeah, so Dane's hand blows.
What hand?
Dude, don't you know the rules? You technically always have a hand.
I know.
Cards. Yeah, so Jason actually, even if he knocks out this, let's see, how much? Oh, he only did 80. So that Keldeo can survive if Dane...
Oh, that's a Genesect.
Yeah, 50 plus 70 plus 10 is 80. So if Dane top decks just dog poop again, then Jason should have this game. But that'd be a huge risk on Jason's part to just leave it down to a top deck. So we'll see if he... This is game 3, so... I'm not sure if that influences decision or not. This is the kind of... It might be a kind of risk you would take if this were like a 15-minute game 1, but maybe not game 3 to decide a series. So we'll see if he has any way to mitigate that risk, go for something a little safer. I'm not entirely sure what that would be. He's heavy balling right now, so if he has the candy in hand, he'll be able to get a Blastoise out, and then he could Black Ballista that Snorlax. Oh, no, we can't do that. He'll die to Palkia, won't he? No, Palkia is only doing 80 right now, so Palkia is not killing anything, barring a Squirtle or whatever, but that's just one prize. So no matter what Jason attacks with, all Dane needs to do is top deck a Deoxys or a supporter to get a Deoxys or something. The only way Jason can get out of this is by killing that Snorlax with the Blastoise or an undamaged Keldeo. It doesn't even bench a Black Kyurem, which, I mean, isn't necessarily bad, but I'm surprised to see that. I'm not really sure what he has in mind here. It takes the same amount of resources to kill a Black Kyurem as it would a Keldeo, so I'm not entirely sure why he limited himself by not benching that. But maybe he just sees that the end is near and that he's either going to win with this Keldeo or not win at all. Dude, I'm really commandeering this. I'm sorry. Do you have anything to add, David?
No, you're covering all of it. Both you and Kenny are excellent commentators. I'm still a novice, unfortunately.
Did he pass? Oh, spooky! So he just passes, giving Dane one more hoop to jump through. So I think Jason might just be holding out to try to draw a catcher as opposed to rolling the dice by killing that Snorlax.
Oh, we see a switch.
But, I mean, the switch still isn't enough to take the knockout. Yeah, so now Jason is in... If things were looking grim for him before, now they're dire. What was that for? Oh, did he play a catcher? I didn't even see it. Okay, yeah. So that'll be the game for Jason. He wins on a catcher.
Wow.
In Game 3 with a Keldeo with 10 HP remaining. Doesn't get a whole lot more dramatic than that. Dane had a 0-card hand.
You know, that was an excellent series. Dane took a very quick first game by knocking out Jason's lone Squirtle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shucks.
With a Palkia, no less. But excellent sportsmanship. Excellent games from both sides. It was great to see.
Awesome. Well, we will be back with the next round fairly soon. Okay, I love you. Good night.